So we're about a week away before the college football season really starts, especially for us Alabama Crimson Tide fans. We're very excited. We have huge expectations. As a matter of fact, the only expectation is for the Alabama Crimson Tide to win a national title. And that's not going to go away. Alabama has continuously showed over the years that they can reload. They can lose 100 players to the NFL draft, and guess what? They'll have the ability to reload with five-star talent. They're known as five-star university. They're known as NFL rehab coaching university. I mean, Bama loses an entire coaching staff. Doesn't matter. They reload. They get a bunch of NFL coaches, other college coaches, and it will feel like nothing has left. But I do have some concerns going into the 2021 season. Maybe a couple of major concerns that I kind of have with, Alabama is a stable. Alabama is the benchmark that every college football team wants to get. But Alabama's not perfect. They're not perfect this year, and I think going to a year where I think is going to be a little bit tougher. There's going to be a lot more experienced teams in the SEC, and not just in the SEC, but out of conference too. I think that this will be a little bit of a challenging year for Alabama. So I do have some concerns that I am going to mention about the team going into 2021. So let's get started on that. So one of the first concerns that I do have is the quarterback position. Now, a lot of people are probably typing in the comment section right now, like, what the hell are you talking about? We got Bryce Young. He's the number one dual threat quarterback in the country. Listen, I've been hyping up Bryce Young since he transferred to Mater Dei during his junior year. I've been hyping him up for a long ass time. I was there. Really, I was there when Mater Dei beat IMG Academy. It was a great game, by the way. But yeah, I was there when Mater Dei beat IMG. I was there when Mater Dei beat St. John Bosco back in 2018 for the championship, 17-13. So I've been watching Bryce Young, or I've probably known Bryce Young a lot longer, or I've watched Bryce Young a lot longer than a lot of Alabama fans have. But when this is your first time starting as a quarterback, you're going to make mistakes, right? Now, yes, granted, he's good. No, this is a sophomore season. He's not a true freshman, but a lot of first-year starters, especially in their first 2 to 3 games, they've had trouble, right? When it comes to really finding continuity between you and your receivers, chemistry between you and your offensive line, especially when you're going against defense. You're not going against the Bama defense or the second string defense. You're going against another opposing team's defense, and especially with the first game where you don't really have a lot of film. There's different schematics, different systems. It can definitely be a little bit harder on a younger quarterback. Now, I'm not saying Bryce Young is going to be a bust, but look at Trevor Lawrence, what he did with Clemson, right? Look at when he started for the Clemson Tigers. He got benched against A&M, and Kelly Bryant had to come in and save the day. And ever since then, Trevor Lawrence he's become one of the best quarterbacks of all time in college sports. So, I think the same thing can happen with Bryce Young. I think he might struggle a little bit. Now, do I think he's going to get benched? Probably not. But there is a little bit of concern, especially when, again, you're going against opposing defenses, different schematics. I definitely think that Bill O'Brien will get him prepared the best he can. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if Bryce Young has a little bit of trouble, right? I also think his height advantage, being that he's 6 feet and he's not Kyler Murray, he doesn't really have the speed of Kyler Murray. I think his height advantage, as we saw in the spring game, could definitely play a little bit. Like we saw that he had he had some difficulties at times throwing over those big tall offensive linemen to try to make those high marquee throws. I think he'll be a great quarterback for Alabama. But that's just something that I think that I just will have a little bit concern with. I think inexperience will definitely play a factor, but I think he'll get better. The offensive line is kind of the same thing as the quarterback position, right? It's not easy when you lose 3 guys. You lose 3 all-SEC, 3 All-American type guys, right? Deontay Brown, Landon Dickerson, Alex Leatherwood. Like, those were your best offensive linemen, and now you've lost them. It's not easy to kind of replace those guys. Now, granted, you got J.C. Latham, who's a 5-star, Tommy Brockemeyer, who's a 5-star. You got Tommy Brown, who's a 4-star, who's been there forever. Kendall Randolph he's got some experience. He's going to be a 5th-year senior. Darian Delcourt's another guy that can maybe challenge in there for the center position. Right, so you got guys, right? You obviously got guys there. Javon Cohen, a guy that's kind of been all over the place. But these are guys that have waited their turn for the most part 3 to 4 years. These are guys that, for the most part, has not had a lot of starting experience at these particular positions. I think the only guy that you can say was a backup that had a lot of starting experience was Chris Owens, and that was because Landon Dickerson got hurt, and Chris Owens held his own, but he also played on the offensive line where, again, the four guys that he played with had a lot, the four guys that he played with, I think with the exception of Emil Ekiyor, not even, because Emil Ekiyor pretty much played the entire year, had a lot of experience going into the 2021 season. So, Chris Owens is going to be working with a lot of guys, with three guys that really doesn't have a lot of playing time, a lot of experience in the offensive line. And even though, yes, you have training camp, you're going against Alabama's defensive line, that definitely will help you. Again, it's the same thing where you're going against different schemes. You're going against different formations, right? I think the physicality, the play, the intensity, I think will definitely increases compared to how it is in training camp, especially in real life game situations. So I definitely think that, and again, if you look at the past, right, even last year against Missouri, even though they dominated the Missouri game, they won 35-13. They had a little bit of trouble, right? They really couldn't run the football against Missouri. Look at the Duke game. Even the Duke game, they had a little bit of trouble in the first half. There was some concerns. Remember, Chris Owens was actually starting that game against Duke and then got benched for Landon Dickerson. So the first couple games, especially when you're competing against tough competition, is always going to be a rough start. Now, if Alabama's offensive line can definitely get things a little bit more smoother, if they can get out of that 2-game hump, which I think they're going to be a little bit rusty when it comes to going against that sort of competition. I think Bama's offensive line can be fine. One area of strength that's been consistent over the years has been Alabama's offensive line. It's been the backbone. It's been the heartbeat of the team for over a decade. And but I definitely think that it will be a challenge replacing 3 All-American, 3 All-SEC type of players and 2 guys that were drafted in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft. So that's just my opinion on that. Again, we all know Alabama has a lot of talent, very similar to the quarterback position, but that's just something that I would like to talk about right there. Is definitely the offensive line. I think the running back position is definitely another kind of concern to me, a little bit of a concern. Definitely way more concerning to me than the quarterback and the offensive line position. Now, just like how I talked about with the offensive line, where you missed 3 starters, and now you have to really focus on continuity. You have to focus on chemistry, stuff like that. I look at the running back position, and even though they're extremely talented at the running back position, are there any guys that have truly showed that they can be that they're the true number one guy? That this is a guy that can definitely be relied upon. I think a lot of Bama fans will definitely go to Brian Robinson, right? Brian Robinson has been there for 5 years. Brian Robinson has kind of been the backup running back for the last couple of years. But I look at Brian Robinson, and he doesn't have the same agility as Najee Harris. He doesn't have the elusiveness, the quick-footedness. I don't think he has the versatility that Najee Harris had in the receiving, where you can line him up in the slot or out wide, or you can or even catch the football at the backfield and be this reliable pass catcher there. Brian Robinson is a old school running back. He's a guy that simply gets the ball. He goes downfield. He's going to run over your best player. That's Brian Robinson. That's, again, he reminds me a lot of Elijah Holyfield, right? Elijah Holyfield can make plays in the receiving game, but he reminds me a lot of his plays, very similar to kind of Elijah Holyfield, very old school type of player. Even a Tyron Davis Price for LSU reminds me a little bit of that. But is that running back, that style of play, is that viable for the modern game of football? And Jace Mckellen is, and I'm very high on Jace Mckellen as a guy that is known as kind of the speed back, and a guy that's known as the downfield player. Cameron Wheaton is a 5-star running back. You got Rodale Williams, who's been a 4-star running back, but that's, a lot of Bama fans and coaches have loved Rodale Williams so far. I think that this is going to be a year very similar to 2018, where I don't think there's going to be that distinguished number one guy. I think all 3 or maybe all 4 running backs could potentially play. And I didn't even mention Trey Sanders, but again, we got to factor in durability issues that Trey Sanders has kind of been struggling with over the last couple of years, excluding the car accident, right? He had the car accident history back, last year. But I don't know if there's a true number one guy. And I think, rotating a bunch of guys, is that going to be helpful? Is that truly going to be helpful going into 2021, or does Alabama truly need that number one distinguished guy? I don't know if Brian Robinson. I think he's capable of maybe getting 1,000 yards. Is he capable of being a top 5 running back in college? I'm not too sure. Does Alabama really need it? Not too really sure about that as well. But I don't know. I look at Brian Robinson and I just look at his style of play, and I just don't know if it fits the modern style of offense. Again, maybe Brian Robinson can prove me wrong. Maybe Alabama has other running backs, like I just mentioned, that can maybe take his place. I'm just not maybe the biggest fan of Brian Robinson, but who knows? Week 1, again, can definitely prove me wrong there. I think another concern that I do have, and I think a lot of Bama fans have definitely argued with me about this over the last couple of months, is the outside cornerback position. I'm a little worried about that. And I like Josh Jobe. I think Josh Jobe was extremely solid as the number 2 cornerback, as the number 2 guy. Even though, again, I saw some areas in his game where he's a little bit more inconsistent in. Sometimes he can get flat-footed. Sometimes he can get a little bit too aggressive when he presses. Some of the areas that Patrick Surtain earlier on in his career had to really work on, and he did work on those things, and he became a top 10 pick because of it. So Josh Jobe definitely has a lot of upside for that. But then I look at the other side, and the other side is a little bit concerning to me because you don't have a lot of experience there. Kool-Aid is kind of that Patrick Surtain guy. Very talented 5-star kid, but doesn't have any playing time experience. Kyrie Jackson is a highly touted JUCO player, doesn't really have a lot of experience. Jalen Armour-Davis was supposed to be the man in 2018, got hurt, and for the most part has been a special teams player. Marcus Banks has just been there. He's talented, but he's just been there as depth. So I'm a little bit worried about the outside position, especially if Josh Jobe is going to be the expected number 1 guy. Who's going to be your number 2 outside corner? Are they, again, we haven't really heard that much noise in training camp, really. We're going to have to see. But in a year where I think that there's going to be a lot of really, really good receiving cores that Bama's going to face, is the outside cornerback position going to be a little bit of a problem? I think the star is fine. I think your safeties has a lot of experience, but even at the safeties position spot, they are not the best in coverage. They're more known as run supporters, but they're not really known as ball hawk guys. So I really do think that it's pivotal that the outside cornerback position is not, I'm not going to say it's spotless. I wish it could be spotless or flawless, but it needs to be better than a lot of the other cornerback areas, maybe besides the star position, which has a crap ton of experience and ball hawk playmaking ability there. So those are really just a little bit of the concerns that I have going into 2021. Not big concerns, but those are just things just to watch out for. I would definitely say the running back area, the quarterback area, the offensive line area, and I would definitely say the outside cornerback position is definitely something to definitely keep an eye on. But anyway, let me know what your concerns is. If you guys have any concerns, or if you simply just want to rant in the comment section about me going on, that is absolutely fine too. But anyway, guys, Jan Sports, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.